Hi, I'm back with part two of our lecture on marketing channels and supply chain management, and promotion. So we've moved to the next section of the text, and we're talking about, when we talked earlier about the 4 Ps: price, people, promotion, and product. We're now looking at product. We're going to look at promotion next. So marketing channels and supply chain management is about product availability, and the marketing manager needs to be a part of the distribution these days, because it has a lot to do with timeliness of the product getting where you want it to be, where it needs to go, and cost, because the cost of distribution is rolled into the cost of the product. So the distribution of the marketing mix focuses on the decisions and actions involved in making the products available to the customers when and where they want to purchase them. An important function of the marketing channel is that it's a joint effort of all involved organizations to create an effective supply chain. There's many, many components to this. Integrating these activities requires that managers work with their counterparts in 3 areas: operations management, logistics management, and supply management. Operations management is the managerial activities to get the product from the start to the product. Logistics involves the planning and implementing and controlling the effective and efficient flow and storage of the product and information to the point, from the point it starts till it reaches the consumer. And supply management is the processes that enable the product, the progress of the value from the raw material to the end point to the customer. So logistics is more about transportation. Supply chain management is a set of approaches used to integrate the functions of the operation so that the product gets there when it needs to get there. It needs to get there in the right quantities and the right location at the right time. And again, if it doesn't happen, then the marketer needs to adjust the supply chain, the channel management. The supply chain includes all the entities that facilitate the product distribution and benefit from the cooperative efforts. One of the things that has changed now is technology. And technology has made it much easier to actually get products from point A to point B to final endpoint. The information that companies can gather with each other is now integrated, and that helps reduce the cost, improve the service, and increase the value for the consumer and for the company. A good example of that is Walmart, actually what I should say is the scan code on a product. A good example is the scan code. You can scan a product, it goes directly into a database, which is often connected to a warehouse, so that it's identified at the warehouse that this particular store has sold X number of this product, and it's time to restock and put them on the truck and get them there. Walmart is an excellent example of that. Marketing implication for these things are that we have really escalated the demand for innovative goods and services. Technology has done that for us, and marketers have had to change their responses and become more flexible when it comes to products and modifying the supply chains to meet the ever-changing needs of us as consumers. And one thing on that is that they need to start talking to consumers more, because we are increasingly a source of knowledge, because we do a lot of research. Marketers need to remember that they have to get the product where it needs to go in a timely fashion. Okay, so what are the roles of the marketing channels in the supply chain? The marketing channel is also called the channel of distribution. The major role is to make products available at the right time, at the right place, the right customers, as I said. There are a couple different types of marketing channels. Some are direct from producer to consumer. Others have what they call marketing intermediaries, different stops along the way that provide different services. Excuse me. You can see that on page 412. If you look at the 14.2, you'll see marketing channels activity is performed by intermediaries, the different types of things that they can do. They offer quite a lot of benefits to marketers, and depending on the product, they can tailor what they offer. Supply chains start with the customer and require the cooperation of channel members to satisfy the requirements. So in order to do so, they often use a customer relationship management tool, which is a technology tool that collects data and uses that information for all the supply chain partners so that we keep everything on track. And again, it decreases costs and increases efficiency. Marketing channels have a powerful influence on the rest of the marketing mix because they often determine a product's market presence and the buyer's accessibility to the product. So as I said at the top of the lecture, it's all about product availability. We need to if we're going to produce a product, we need to get it there when it's supposed to be there. That's why supply chain management has become such a big deal and is becoming a specialty in some areas. Marketing channels create what they call utilities, and there's 4 different types. There's the time utility, which is it happens because we have products available when the consumer wants them. Place utility, because the products are available in locations where the consumer wants to purchase them. Possession utility, which is the customer has access to the product for now or for future use. And then form utility is sometimes it's used by assembly, preparing, and refining the product to suit individual customer needs. So there are 4 types of utilities that the marketing channels create. Marketing channels facilitate exchange efficiency. So marketing intermediaries that we talked about can reduce the cost of exchange. If you go to page 415, you'll see figure 14.2, typical marketing channels for consumer products. You can see letter A is rather simple, obviously would cost less money if it works for your product. And letter D, there's 5 different steps, which is going to increase the cost to the company, but it may work out in a more effective distribution. The 2 types of marketing channels are channels for consumers and channels for businesses. The channels for consumers, are generally limited quantities of products purchased from retailers and often don't mind limited customer service when it comes to the channels that they use. When customers are concentrated in a small geographic area, a more direct channel might be ideal, but when customers are spread across the country, then you might use this letter D form where there's more intermediaries involved. As a marketing manager, your selection of the channel is very significantly affected by the customer characteristics, the product itself, the types of organizations that you're working with, what the competition is doing, the marketing environment, here we go with the environment again, and characteristics of the intermediary. So there are many things that affect your channel selection and who you pick to do that. Okay, a little more on those different characteristics. The product attributes, the product can have a strong influence on the choice of marketing channels, obviously. If you are a firm that your desire is to convey an exclusive image for your product, then you're going to limit the number of outlets that you send it to. So that's totally different than a convenience product. An example of that is Stihl chainsaws. Stihl makes a lot of different tools for the home, particularly outside stuff. They limit their distribution of their product to specific specialty type hardware stores. You won't find a Stihl chainsaw in a Home Depot unless they started to put a they're like low model in there, but generally you won't find them there. You have to go to a specialty shop, like a local lawn equipment place. The types of organizations, there's large versus small, obviously. Larger firms are better able to negotiate deals with the vendors, and smaller firms obviously usually use local people because they're not big enough. They don't have enough, they don't have enough finances to do anything bigger, but they also may often use a sales force and maybe even ship products long distances instead of use a distribution channel. So it depends on the size of the company. It has a lot to do with what type of channel you use. The competition is a big factor, because if you decide to adopt a different strategy and it doesn't work, you're in trouble. So if you might adopt a similar channel strategy in order to stay on top. And then again, the environmental forces, economic conditions, new technology, maybe new laws, environmental regulations, all those things have an effect on your channel strategy. Another thing a marketer has to determine is the intensity at which of the coverage that a product should get. Should it go to a whole bunch of different outlets, a specific type of outlet, but the intensity will be determined by the types of organizations and where you're sending it to. Competitive strategic issues in marketing channels include competitive priorities. Supply chains can provide a competitive advantage because they can reduce a firm's market value by 10%. If the supply chain activities are not integrated, then the functions exist without coordination and you're going to fail. You won't get your product there where it needs to go. All the activities need to be integrated and coordinated in a system, and that's what you use a customer relationship management system for. Supply chains must be driven by some very important things: established goals that focus on the competitive priorities, which are speed, quality, cost, flexibility, or flexibility as the performance objectives. So they must focus on those things in order to be competitive. Then we have channel leadership, cooperation, and conflict. Often there's conflict within the channel. So a smart marketer develops her channel strategy or his channel strategy carefully by picking the channels that have either worked with each other in the past or they've worked with each other and have been effective. And the channels must agree upon the other partners and have relationships with them, or it will be very, very difficult. Channel cooperation can speed up inventory replenishment, improve customer service, cut the cost of bringing the products to the consumer. And if that doesn't happen, then deliveries can fail. And that's a reflection upon the organization who makes the product, not the channel. So it's extremely important that channels be coordinated. And there will be channel conflict, and the way to avoid that is to be specific about the role of each member of the channel, and that works pretty much in any business and anything. Okay, physical distribution is logistics. That refers to the activities used to move products from producers to consumers and other end users. The internet has changed, and the technology that has changed has revolutionized logistics, allowing many manufacturers to do things entirely online, bypass shipping, warehousing considerations, and transforming distribution by facilitating just-in-time delivery, precise inventories, and instant shipment tracking capabilities, which is completely different than putting it on a truck and waiting for it to show up 2 weeks later. So technology has really changed logistics and how products are moved. There are companies now that do just logistics. One of them is called Coyote. Recently was sold to UPS, unfortunately, but they're still doing their piece. The owners made millions of dollars by implementing this technology and using that technology to transport goods mostly online, not transport them online, but coordinate everything online. Transportation is the movement of products from where they're made to intermediaries and end users, and is the most expensive distribution function. There are 5 different ways: railroads, trucks, waterways, air transportation, and pipelines. Those are the way we can transport products. As a logistics manager, as a marketing person, you need to choose your transportation mode based on things like cost, speed, dependability, load flexibility, which is really key, accessibility and frequency. Those choices can make or break your whether or not your product gets there on time, and what you need, and what companies need to consider. Coordinated transportation is to take advantage of the benefits offered by various transportation modes and compensate for deficiencies here and there. Marketers often combine and coordinate 2 or more modes. So if one's not going to complete the job, then they add another one, which is extremely, extremely important. So that was a real quick review of marketing channels. But one thing I want to leave you with and have you think about, we talked about sustainability in our last couple of chapters, and how important sustainability is to marketers these days. So companies are working harder on trying to be more sustainable in their supply chain management practices. And there's an example of the Panasonic and how they have greened its supply chain by recycling their products and reusing those parts in new products. It allows materials from previously used electronics to be reused, and they've set up a special recycling facility to help in the implementation of the recycling-based manufacturing process, so that they have more control over their supply chain, which is pretty interesting. So they've kind of brought their own supply chain, their own supplies back to themselves, which eliminates a lot of other stuff on the back end. So even in supply chain management, we're looking at sustainability. Okay, so that's our supply chain lecture, and I will record a 3rd lecture on promotion in just a few. Thanks, everyone.